And we're back. It's been kind of a hiatus for not a show, but we found a little breath of air to be able to talk to Scott. Finish our discussion about skin tones. And so say hi and we'll hit the intro.
Hello.
This is not a show and might not even be a connection. Here's Judah and guest.
So Scott, we've got a little bit of a abbreviated. We only have a little window tonight, but I really was eager to get back to finishing our discussion on skin tone. I feel like there's so much to cover.
Yep.
I came out of last week thinking, well, just kind of with a broad understanding of like, now I'm kind of forgetting. What did we go over last time? Oh, we talked about not just skin but muscle, right? And being able to
mass,
look at mass and the importance of doing studies and looking at the human body and human anatomy.
That's right. Yeah.
Talked a little bit about pigment and stuff, but I think we're going to get deeper into that today, right?
Definitely. And I think one of the things that we talked about, we started with the Renaissance era, and we tried to get towards Impressionism. We got close, but we didn't quite get there. And we ended up finishing where we were talking about Velázquez and his fascinating way of creating shortcuts, really, for the painter, for himself. And we'll find that Caravaggio, my favorite painter, did the same thing. He created shortcuts by having a toned ground, and we talked about a toned ground similarly to what I'm doing with this little self-portrait here, a medium tone. And so when you do that, you don't have to start from white. You can actually paint the white in, and you can actually not paint certain areas. You can just leave it the actual color. It's there in certain areas. It's hard to see here, but where it's just you leave it there, and that's another Italian term. We talked about sfumato, which means smoke or kind of fused edges, which Da Vinci used on Mona Lisa and other paintings, where the edges, you don't want them to be too hard, or they don't look as natural as they do in real life. Well, another Italian term that we'll use is called a risparmio, and risparmio has the word spare in there, and the idea is spare me time, but it's time thinking spare me money, like efficiency is the idea. Risparmio, save me some time so that I can make more money, right? So that's the idea behind the toned ground, is this idea
How
of
do you spell
saving.
it? How do you spell it?
RISPARMIO. Risparmio.
Risparmio. Or Risparmio.
Yeah, Risparmio. That's the idea.
Risparmio.
Yeah, that's it. That's
okay.
it. Yep. Yeah. So the idea is that we are trying to save time. Okay, that's plain and simple. And every artist wants that. Every painter wants that. They want to save time any way they can find it. So that's one way of doing that. And so if you pull up the first of what I just sent you tonight, that was going back to Velázquez. We were looking at the painting of Vulcan in the Forge, and that has multiple figures. That's the masculine kind of meat market we were looking at last week.
Yeah.
It's beautifully. I found some better pictures, so those are the ones I sent you. But the idea, and he does it there. He's using it there, and we'll see when we get the close-ups. Yep, that's that one. It's that one.
Yeah.
So you have all the male, muscle tones there. A lot of some bright, some in darkness, some more in shadow. So if you look now to, that's a good overview, and then the next one I sent you shows one of the workers in the background. You see his chest. Yeah, there you go. Now you see all kinds of tones there. This is, again, all the whites that you see are lead white, which we talked about a little bit last week. And then you have earth colors over top of that, toning it and modeling it. But that, I mean, that it looks very realistic, you can see. Go to the headshot that's the next one I showed you, and it's a headshot and profile. There you go. There's one of them.
Yeah.
That's his headshot. Now you start to see that, you know, can you kind of see vertical lines going through his face?
Yeah. Yeah.
You're seeing the canvas, and you're going to see it more in the next shot. But
I'm sorry, you were breaking up. What?
Those are the
That's the
canvas
canvas.
lines, the linen, basically. That's the weave going vertical. Now look at the next one, which is the other guy in profile. It's his head close up. Yes, there we go. You see it even more so there. And if you in his hair, see that brown spot in the upper central quadrant? It's the lighter brown, a reddish brown. All that kind of area. That's all the ground. That's the ground layer. That's what he started with. He just didn't paint that.
Wow, interesting.
It's also in his face, on his cheek line where his hair is. And I'm going to just jump to the picture I sent you last time. It's a little bit better, and then it shows a little bit more detail. Here we go. Yes. Okay. The one I just sent you, if you can put that one up, it shows beautifully what I'm talking about.
Okay.
But he's using what he started with. That I showed you my pink canvas, the kind of pinkish reddish background. There you go. See that there? You see those canvas lines in that bright area? That's exactly what's going on there.
So when you see canvas lines, does that mean that's very thin paint?
Very thin, because that's what he started with. It's actually brown, and it's in this picture. I took a picture of a picture, basically a picture of a really great detail in a book that I have. But it shows the, you know, you can see the canvas lines going both north and south and east and west. And the same thing you have here in his shoulder. And check this one out. This is his shoulder blade, and you see the same thing in this one. And it's just that's the canvas. It's what he started with. And so the idea here is that you can paint, and now there you go, all the way on the bottom and the middle. You see all that stuff breaking up in the shadow? It looks kind of like dark and light. That's that same color and the same abrasion of the canvas lines.
So to get back to Risparmio,
efficiency.
That's a cheat. It's a cheat, right? Like a cheat code that you can, or pro tip cheat code that you can. It's almost like having. You'd probably want to start with a canvas that maybe that you could save money, because you start with a canvas that I'm trying to think here. I'm trying just like spitballing. You start with a canvas that has the colors of or has the color that is most expensive, maybe, or that's used most.
So what you would do, and often people want to start with like an oil lead ground, which with lead white, which I like, but it's very expensive. These are earth colors. You're talking. This is red iron oxide. That's an earth red. That's what he has on his ground. Plus probably some umbers, maybe a little bit of carbon black pigment in there. And we talked last week how Rembrandt uses marble, but a lot of them used chalk. Now, I know this looks really bad. I got bags of white powder all over the place. I have little black books that I talked about last week. You know,
Yeah.
I got books with naked people all over the place. This is a very bad look. I get it. Yeah. But seriously, you use whatever you can, and chalk's cheap. It's very cheap. You
So
put it
what is the chalk?
It's literally chalk. It's just
I
powder.
mean, no, but what do you use it for? Like you use it for white?
You use it to extend your oil paints, make them go further, more translucent.
Okay.
And so they would put them in there, but and also to give them more body. So they put chalk in their grounds to try to smooth over. Well, people like Caravaggio, he would try to put a lot of chalk in to try to smooth over those canvas lines, get rid of them. But he would also use them thinly, like Velasquez, to make it more translucent. So you take your colors, make them more translucent. So that way, colors can move through to the ground and bounce back. Like light can move and hit to the ground and bounce back. And
so where did people start using white, and why would they use white if you could save time? And
yeah, right, exactly. Well, I mean,
where did that become popular?
It really became popular in this time period, like in mid to post Renaissance, and it became very popular afterwards. And really, the Venetians, like Titian, he was one of the ones that made it really, popular. Titian was huge for wanting tone grounds. He liked the medium red ground, and would pretty much start with that almost uniformly. And but it became popular, and Caravaggio he went darker, and that's what I'm really studying. His the National Gallery has their technical bulletins that they put on. You can go to their website, and you look up an artist. If they have their paintings, they'll tell you what's in their paints, like what pigments they used, because they'll take little samples and they'll list them and say this is what they used, and it's a great resource because it's free and it's very well researched. But they often the video that I showed you that I posted with Artemisia Gentilesh, she used a tone ground, medium tone ground. She was younger than Caravaggio. Her father was a good friend of his. She studied under him in some ways, and that is a good shortcut. It's a cheat code. It's like a Konami code, right, for video gamers.
Yeah.
It's like it is. It really is, and it saves you a lot of time. It also keeps you from the whole idea of like the white page idea, like for someone who writes or types. There's something with a middle tone. It just helps the creative mind engage the topic a little easier, I would say, in my opinion.
Yeah, to me, as I'm thinking about it, it's because white, when I paint, I use white sparingly. And so if I start with a white, that bright white, I use it sparingly, unless I'm using it to lighten up another color or whatever. But so starting with white is almost like admitting that I can see how white could add to this stuckness, because it's like if you start with white, you're saying I'm going to fill this whole thing with something else. But if you start with another color like brown, I'm loving this idea, starting with brown. Then you're saying it's almost like a sculpting more than painting, because you're saying there's something already on the canvas that I'm going to be working with.
Sculpting is that's the way you said it. That's perfect. That's where you want to be, because actually now you can immediately start putting the form in. And I guess I should back up and say, for the type of painting I do, I should never be intimidated by a white ground, in the sense that I'm usually coming with having done drawings ahead of time and planned. And so it's not like a writer's block thing when I come to it, but it's still intimidating to me, even if I've done drawings in white background. Like, okay, it just feels a little like starting from negative value.
It's intimidating. Yes, the
Yes.
negative value. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
and so that's for watercolorists. That's how they have to start. You start with a white or toned, mostly
Wait, say that
white.
again. For who? For what?
For people who work with watercolors,
Right.
you're
Yeah, I'm
necessarily
getting the
starting with,
oils, but yeah,
but
you
you
have.
can start with, you can get a toned paper and build with white with
Yeah.
watercolor. You can do that, but
Oh,
it's not the norm. So,
not preferred.
but
Yeah.
but start with that middle ground. You can start, to your point, like you said, sculpting. You just, if you start throwing in the light forms, the highlights, and the black forms, which is what Caravaggio did. He drew directly on the canvas, and we don't have drawings. We don't think he even did drawings. He just started painting right on the canvas, which is incredible for what he gave us. Um,
Yeah.
but so yeah, that's what you
So
have in
that would be.
Velasquez.
Would that be this?
Yeah.
That'd be this guy, right?
Well, Velasquez also, he also typically
Oh.
drew right on the canvas, but he would have done at least some sketches usually. We believe we know he's done. We have drawings of his. We don't have any drawings of Caravaggio's. We believe that he basically just painted right onto the canvas all of his ideas, which is incredible when you see what he did. But so yeah, that kind of rounds out where from the last time, from the Renaissance, the more classical approach. It kind of ends in this
Okay.
age with Velasquez. We didn't look at Rembrandt, but Rembrandt basically, he studied, he drew. He's a different cat. We should probably cover him on his a different time, just by
Give
himself.
an episode to him.
Yeah, yeah, and he, but he was very much a student. Vermeer was a student, even though we don't have drawings of his. He was a student of the craft. But we want to get towards Impressionism, and
Okay.
in doing that, we're going to see a big change in how people painted, and it is drastic, but it might not be quite as drastic as people think. But go ahead and throw up the big head self portrait of Henry Latour that yeah, okay. So what I want to show you there, well, first before I will tell you anything, just looking at that, what are some of your initial thoughts about it? Just anything compared
The
to
eyes.
the class.
The eyes are striking. It seems like
Okay.
everything is a little bit blurred.
Okay.
There's nothing detailed, but to me it makes the eyes pop more because
Yeah.
because it's the most. It seems like when everything is blurred, it's like the most complicated thing becomes the most interesting thing because even if it's not detailed.
Yeah. Right. Yes. Yeah, I agree. And then what do you think about just the form, like the form of the figure? Has much changed in your mind from what we've seen as far as anatomy and all those things, or?
Yeah. It's interesting. Well, okay. Let me
I mean,
think.
does it seem accurate to life? I guess is my point.
Yeah, I mean, it looks pretty accurate to life to me. Is it not?
Yeah, I would agree. Like I don't think that's changed very
No,
much.
that hasn't changed. Although, there is something a little more modern about his hair. It's like it's more affected.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
And it's more affected in his pose, right? Like the other ones are the drama. He's looking at the subject there. He's looking at the audience, right?
And kind of downward, which is really weird for that. The pose
mysterious.
itself. And how about the background?
Green
and bright.
and bright. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I hadn't even noticed that. Yeah.
You could almost,
as opposed to this.
Yeah. Right.
It's completely different. Oh, wow.
You could almost put your thumbs and your hands over his head and his shoulders and be like, in a different background, that could be a classical painting,
Interesting.
Yet he's
So
also
talk to
not
me.
he's also not quite rendered quite as tightly. It's a little bit less mysterious, right? A little fuzzy. You said blurry. The colors aren't quite as rich too. Not just the background. The background's kind of this weird lime greenish color instead of a dark black, really dark olive, is probably what it would have been in the past. The pose is different. He'd be engaging us more directly, not looking down and off to the side. But the colors are different, yet somehow they still seem authentic. Like you're not looking at it and going, that doesn't look like flesh.
Right.
For our skin tone theme, which he looks pretty good. Like he looks a little pasty. I mean, the light's coming down pretty harsh on him there, but he's got color to him. But it's different. And one of the things that they're doing here. Well, let me ask you this. Another thing, and this isn't just like don't think about just the figure. We talked about the color in the background, which is bright, which might make it seem more compact, like closer to us. But do you think in the human, the forms of the flesh, does it seem like there's as much depth as the paintings of the past?
Yeah.
Okay.
I like the just in sort of the molding of his eye, under his eyes, you can see on the silhouette he's got, and touched with a little red to make it does look carnal. There is flesh there.
And this is someone who studied the anatomy. Like he could draw, and that's one thing that's really important here. We get to people who could paint relatively well, but couldn't draw very well. And probably not the people that we're going to talk about here, but I want you to see that it's not just like when we get to Impressionism that people just don't know how to do things. That's not the case. They might be less interested in being as academic and like doing all these things perfectly, but they still have, like, they can render, they can conceptualize a form and they can capture it. The colors might be different. In my opinion, these colors are a lot more flat, but to your point, his eye sockets and the shadows under his nose and in his chin, they show the depth. Probably a more ancient master would have made it pop a lot more. It would have had more pop, and that would have like made the depth really come out. But they do still have it. Like this Henry Latour, he's still capturing a lot of what the old masters did. Like he really does have the figure in place, and it's coming.
And the muscly, even though he's not bare chested or anything, there's still the folds and the clothes, and
drapery.
And it's there's something very carnal about this picture. Even his hair, still has the the tones, and I don't know.
Exactly.
You're right. There is something very classic in portrayal of a human.
That's one I really like. I like this
I like
self-portrait of him a lot. Now we go to we're going to go to the compositional pieces in Degas, which are the dancers. Doesn't matter which one. Probably why don't we come back to that one and first go to the one with the two dancers that have their legs up on the... There we go. Now we're getting into something totally different. We haven't seen, first of all, perspective like this. It's like the painter slash...
Oh, we lost Scott.
There I am.
Okay.
Yep.
He's back.
So what I was I was saying is that the in this we have the painter is perched up on a scaffolding or a ladder of some sort, right, looking down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This is something that's different. This angle,
Mm-hmm.
the subject matter, ballet
Like compared to
dancers.
this or this
Yeah.
is like what you'd
Yep.
call
Hmm.
eye level or
Yeah, like
something.
an establishing
This is
shot. Yeah.
coming down. It's
Yep.
swooping down from a higher vantage point. Okay, yeah.
It's almost like he's taking on the role of the person that's manning the lights, right? And you have this bright
Mm.
light beaming on their shoulder blades, right? And
Yeah.
and so you have this kind of idea of someone who's backstage, maybe a part of the production itself. And so this while the impressionists might in some ways sacrifice a level of detail and rendering, like these forms are rendered accurately enough, like there's body and there's weight to them, but they're not like it's not the way that the Renaissance painters would have done. They would have put a lot
No.
more into this, but in doing so they may have lost sort of this intimacy of being a part of this moment. And so impressionism, one of the things they try to establish is this moment, and it could be a blink, like just this literally an impression, like a a glance that you had of someone, or a memory, the kind of the memory feel that you have of something, as opposed to an a photograph. And
Yeah.
this captures that, like you're there, part of this production, and you captured this moment, and you had spun the light on them, and then they went out to perform. But you remember this, so there's this impression,
Yeah.
this moment, the moment, and think moment. I think when you think of impressionism,
Okay,
that's the
moment. Capturing a moment. Yeah, and so, when you pointed out the bright background, I
Mm-hmm.
think that's huge. I don't think I would ever notice that about impressionism is the brightness of it. There's still shadow,
Mm-hmm.
and yet it's almost a dream world type shot. It's not
Yeah,
exactly the physics of a real
right.
lens, right? Like an eye wouldn't be. It's more of the mind's eye rather than what you literally see, right?
Yeah, and I think that the idea yeah, exactly is that we're almost like a participant. This
Mm.
is in the way of, here we are up on the scaffolding looking down at their shoulder blades. That really is the idea. And
Mm.
if you go to the next one of his, which you had up previously, it's a little bit bigger situation, a lot more characters. It's a little darker,
More shadow.
yeah,
Yeah.
more shadow. But this is kind of, you have this. Notice how you have more people moving around. It's very like either something's about to start or it's happened and it's ending. It doesn't.
Something very
It doesn't.
pregnant, right?
Yes, exactly. Do you feel that? Like
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
so much action going on here. And even though you only get like the only part of the flesh that's actually moving in a direction is that one elbow in the foreground that kind of
Yeah.
wraps around. Otherwise, you get like just lines here of and shoulder blades and heads. You get another elbow that's bending right behind the kind of director there.
Right.
But if you think of it in that way, there's only a couple of limbs that are in action, and everything else is very much just put in just to give you enough. And you, the viewer, your mind is left to fill in the blanks.
One thing I noticed here, and I need to get your take on this real quick. Maybe it's
Yeah.
a non sequitur, but growing up and in all my art, I have never drawn people with black clothing.
Hmm.
And so far, most of the people, well, at least in the Impressionists,
Mhm.
we're seeing a lot more black clothing. It just struck me that I've never drawn anybody. I wear a lot of black, but
Mhm.
I've never drawn people with, like, to me, but it looks so normal. It looks so natural here in this picture. What is I guess it is a waiter or something like that. It identifies. It's a man of stature. I don't know. Maybe he's wearing a black suit. I don't know.
Yeah, right. Yes, exactly. And I would say there's probably if you have characters like this, you're gonna see that, and maybe the more you go, because Henry Latour was wearing a black shirt with a white collar, so that was a little bit pushing it one direction. What I would say that a lot of men wore suits, so you're going to have more men in dark clothing. But when you get outside of that, you're going to see. In fact, where we should end, and I know this is going to be a shorter episode, so why don't we go ahead?
Yeah.
If it's way back up on your scroll, why don't we pull up Monet's Woman with a Parasol? Because there we'll get a.
Oh, okay.
Probably
let me just look it up.
One of the most, if not the most, in my mind, iconic impressionist paintings, and one of the ones I adore the most. Absolutely love this painting. And I don't paint this way. At least I have a little bit way in back, but I don't enjoy doing it as much. But I really appreciate what Monet did here.
Okay. This right here? Oh, wait. What do we need to do here? Let's take that down. Okay.
Here we go. That's the one. So, it's a little weird, though. Huh. Let's see.
Why? Is that not the real one?
No, it's a little bit affected. Grab the one I just sent you. Hopefully it came.
Okay.
That's the piece, but it doesn't have the both characters.
No, I don't think it is the right one. It's different. All right, let's see.
Yeah. Hopefully the one I just sent you came through. But there we go. That's the one. So
see, those are different pictures.
Yeah. I don't know what that red spot is. Plus the boy's missing in the background.
They're totally different. Yeah. Okay. All right. So this is the authentic one. Yeah.
So flesh tones. What do you got to say about flesh tones here?
Well, you don't see many flesh tones, man. Not seeing much skin.
Do you feel like there's a human presence there?
I think there's two. I feel like there's two human presences.
Yeah. And do you feel like you're slighted by what you're given, or do you feel like it's still palatable and convincing and adequate?
I think it's still adequate. I think it's adequate.
Yeah.
It is mysterious. I want to find something with more detail here. Because this is important. Let's see, tools, size, image.
We talked a little bit last week about real estate, how there might not be a whole lot of real estate of flesh on a painting. The last time we talked, and we said, we were talking about Jan van Eyck's The Jewish Bride, and there was so much blackness around it. Well, here we have so much color and light around the flesh, but similarly, there's even less real estate with flesh on it. But, and I think there's two reasons why this works. One is that I think there's only two heads. The two heads are the only places where you have real flesh tones, even though they're very impressionist, very much like a glimpse. It's like turning your head and you see something and it's here and gone. But because that's the only place where those colors are localized is one reason. And two, I think we're drawn in that we have a figure who's taller, this very feminine figure, and then this little boy, and so there's an interplay of like a woman and a boy, and we're starting to try to fill in the blanks, like we're trying to fill in the blanks with all the details that we're not given. Impressionism also invites you to fill in the blanks where impressionist paintings don't give you all the detail. They leave your mind to fill in the blanks, and being less like a cartoon, it's not that level of light rendering, but more than just a blob. Like you get something there. You're invited to fill in the blanks, and so as you pulled us in and gave us a close up, you can start to make out the features in her face, and even the boys.
It does.
You can see.
It does look a little, you ever seen any Miyazaki cartoons?
Oh yes,
Like Howl's Moving Castle.
We are huge fans here of Miyazaki. Yes.
So are we. I wonder if he, his art sort of draws from this, from Monet, in the sense that, like, doesn't that look like
I would have no doubt.
Miyazaki woman?
Yeah, I would have no doubt. I think that because he's an incredible storyteller. We love his films. So they've been watching Howl's Moving Castle and reading the book recently here. They're big fans here of his work.
Nice.
That's a really good point. Like I would have never thought that we could connect Miyazaki and Monet, but I think you're right.
It's the big eyes, big eyes, defined eyebrows, rosy cheeks on the kid,
Yep.
There's something really I love it. It's great. But see, what makes it more realistic for me is the light rather than the dark, or maybe the contrast, but like that light on the back of her bodice there, or whatever that is.
It's gorgeous. Doesn't it give her form? Yeah.
Yeah. So and then I need to. And then if you scroll down, like her shadow here,
Yeah.
And then the bright flowers that line up with the the shine,
they're picking up the shadow down there. Yes, absolutely.
And it's very well lined up with him, Yeah, man. And up here,
gorgeous.
It could be a little brighter up here, but yeah, it's interesting.
It's gorgeous. Yeah. I think this is truly one of the great masterpieces of Impressionism, and it should be one of the most popular ones. It really should be, if not the most popular one. It's incredible. I love the highlights and the clouds in the background as well. Framing the subject with light, with more dark in the foreground, silhouetting almost, as opposed to the old masters. It's almost like he's doing a reverse of what the masters did, having shadow in the background and the character in the foreground more lit. And so it's beautiful. It's gorgeous.
But still the glow here on her arm, almost reflection off of the flowers, maybe. I don't know, maybe just a glow from the sun wrapping around a little bit. Man,
and the drapery in the lower parts of her, from the waist down, her dress, you can feel that she's turned.
Yes.
She just turned to look at us, right?
Yeah.
And I guess
capturing a moment, like you said.
Capturing a moment. This, I believe, this is his wife and son. So I believe that's another layer of this kind of adoring, kind of capturing moment of his family. And I like from the ground up, right, showing the grandeur of woman and child. That's really a great way to show that. And she's got her parasol there, shading her from this bright sunlight.
Now, it's interesting though. How's the shadow working? Where's the sun coming? I mean, the sun should be coming from behind her, right?
Is it behind the parasol? We don't know. I mean, that's the thing. It seems like it's coming from the right. If you look at the back of her bodice,
It
like you were saying,
does.
it seems like it's coming more that way, and then hitting
Because I
the
mean, if you look at the boy,
clouds.
especially, huh?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it seems like it's coming from the right, and that would also hold true with the shadows in the ground that you pointed out about and how
Yeah,
the little bit of grass and flowers that are kind of coming up into her shadow on the lower
yeah,
portion of her dress, but they're getting that
yeah.
fresh light and then creating shadow beyond it. So it seems like that's where it's coming from.
Should be up here, but this
So,
should be brighter in the right corner, right? Like
I mean,
it feels.
yeah, I mean, yes and no. I mean, it's kind of hard
Unless
to
the sun's
tell.
going down. Maybe the sun's going
Mm.
down. I don't
Yeah,
know. It's
what time of the
interesting.
day is it? What's the arc of the sun?
Yeah,
Those are all kind of things.
yeah,
And it's hitting those clouds behind her pretty intensely on the one side, but not
yeah,
quite the other. So,
yeah, yeah.
and it's
It's so. I
amazing.
love the little squigglies, like all these little squigglies. He just
Yeah,
left, you know.
they shouldn't feel like clouds, but they work, right? They
Yeah.
shouldn't.
Oh
If
yeah.
you just get rid of her and him and the grass, and it feels like it shouldn't work, but it does. They still
Right.
feel like clouds because of the whole composition.
Yeah.
So he really thought
Yeah.
this through.
He really did.
I'm
I
going to
love the
bat
blues
for
too, the
people that
greens in
think that,
here. Huh?
the Impressionists, some might think that the Impressionists were just taking a day off or not really working as hard. I don't see it that way. I don't like them as much as I like the Renaissance painters through the Dutch master, the old masters. I would consider the Impressionists kind of like the great Impressionists, Renoir that we saw, and certainly
Mm,
Monet and Manet for sure as well. I consider them
mm,
probably the very end of old masters, but they don't paint like the old masters, and I don't fault them for that. I don't. They still took a lot of things very seriously: anatomy, lighting, color in a different way,
mm,
but they took it very seriously, and I think that they were just trying to accomplish something different. I think when you get to more modern painting, I'll
mm-hmm.
get off the bus, and I can tell you reasons why whenever we talk about those types of
Okay.
painters. But
Can we do that? Can we look at a few modern paintings that are popular and
mhm,
that are repulsive and
sure,
explain why, and maybe we can either say why we like them or why we're repulsed by them
yeah, definitely, and I'll show you
in
some that
contrast
are
to what
like,
we're looking at here, and what we're
oh
talking about
yeah,
here.
and some of them I'll show you some that are extremely like in terms of their rendering, they'll look like and feel like old master paintings, but you'll be like, what's different? And I'll help
Hmm.
explain what's different and what they're
Okay.
doing that is different pictorially. But, yeah,
That
this is
sounds good.
this was a good
Yeah.
segue from kind of the older masters to impressionism. I
Yeah.
really like the
I
impressionists.
appreciate
I
it.
do.
I love them. I love them. I grew up, my father being he introduced me. My dad, let me see if I can find it. Did I show you I show you the old sea captain my dad was working on? He hasn't finished. This is the old unfinished sea captain.
No, I didn't see that. Oh yeah,
Okay.
that's great.
So
Nice.
he really
Fantastic.
gets into more of the impressionist.
Yeah, I
He
like that.
he sort of taught me to love Van Gogh. He
Mm.
like he could sit there for hours and look into Van Gogh, and I know you don't like Van Gogh, so
I'm sorry. I'm hashtag Van Gogh's overrated, but I mean I hold a grudge a little bit, and that's fighting words for people. I get it. I he purposefully didn't want to study the human figure, and that bothers me because at least
Hmm.
I just
Hmm.
I don't know. I think he could have been much better had he really devoted himself to study. He's
Hmm.
he seemed like he just wasn't interested in that. He could use color though really well, and I can say I have to
Yeah.
say he used color really well and had a sense of composition for sure. But
Yeah.
I really dock him on the study of the human anatomy, and he understood perspective. That's the thing. You look at his drawings, and he
Yeah.
got perspective really well. And I just wish he would have just
Yeah.
applied himself more. He could have been 10 times better, I feel.
Really? I don't know. Maybe. But we can talk more about it next time. Let's get
Yeah.
into more of the
Modern
the
painting.
shift away
Yeah.
from the classics and get into more
Yep.
modern paintings.
Definitely.
Well,
Yep,
thank
I'll get
you.
us queued
Thank
up.
you so much, Scott. This
Thank
is
you.
just thinking about and looking at let's see, all these and just going through them and getting your take on them, I think has been really helpful for me.
Good.
Appreciate
Well,
it, Scott.
it's always fun. I appreciate the time. It's always a joy.
And thank you for everybody tuning in. And hope you were able to glean as much as I did. And have a wonderful night. We'll see you hopefully in about 2 weeks.
We'll see.
Back
Yeah.
here.
Whenever it works. Take care.
Yeah. All right.